Good evening, friends, and welcome to another live reality games podcast. Today, we are here to talk about the epic episode. I promise you, there are going to be spoilers, a lot of them. And if you don't want to be spoiled, you have to go watch it because we're going to spoil it in like seconds. But this is Wahoo Warriors Survivor at UVA, episode 5, called A Quick Death for Me, Slow Death for You. I also think it could be called, where's my note? Is she going to write my name on a pear? Like if I had a subtitle, that would be my subtitle. Okay, but I'm Kirk, you know that. With us is the host with the most, GENKI. How are you doing today?
Hi, Kirk. I'm doing well. I'm super excited to be here. I'm especially excited to be here for this episode because this was a wild episode. Rarely do production blindsides happen, but this tribal was a production blindside where not even I understood what happened after the vote.
Well, I can't wait to get into that. That's wild. That's very true. Coming from a host myself, when that happens, you're totally surprised. Also with us, you may recognize this face from the sequester community. Johnny, nice to meet you. Welcome.
Nice to meet you too, Kirk. Thanks for having me. I'm a huge LRG and College Survivor fan. I just discovered UVA for the first time a few weeks ago. Big fan of GENKI. I played one of my sequester minis with him. But this season is absolutely outrageous. That episode might go down as one of the top 3 episodes of Survivor I've ever seen of all time. Just making a bold claim out there. And episode to talk about because that was crazy. Absolutely nuts.
And with us, you've seen this face before. With us is Katie from the season. How are you doing, Katie?
I'm good. Glad to talk to everyone today. It was a crazy episode, crazy week. I'm excited to talk about it.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, for sure. So we can get right into it. I mean, I want to start, GENKI, kind of like one of my questions I had, and I know you say it right at the start, there's a lot of advantages kind of floating around at this game. And in the recap, you kind of talk about that, which makes this a thrilling episode at the start because anything could happen. So can you kind of fill us in again on like who already has some kind of advantage?
Okay, so as of now, the advantages in the game are 2 half idols. So in the first episode, Margaret and Kevin each received a half idol, and if they can work together to connect those half idols, it makes 1 full idol. And then we have 2 more idols in the game. Tommy, he found the pre-swap idol. We didn't do the mechanic where each tribe has 1 idol. We had 1 idol for pre-swap, 1 idol for post-swap. So that's why there are 2 idols in the game, 1 for Tommy, and then Peyton, she found the post-swap idol after getting the clue in her buff. And she beat Tommy to it. And I'm pretty sure that's it. The remaining advantages are all fake. So Ryan has made a fake legacy idol advantage, and Andy has made a fake idol. So whether that plays into the future or not, we have yet to see.
I still am putting it out there. If you're going to play a future College Survivor, I think you need to come in with a fake idol. It seems like at least have it in your pocket. I don't know. It seems like the way the game is going. But that's a ton of power. And really, I can't wait to talk more about Margaret and Kevin. I'd kind of forgotten about the half idols while I watched it. That kind of gives me a new perspective on this. So yeah, Johnny, you're kind of new to this podcast. What are your takes before they get to the challenge? Any hot takes for us?
Before they got honestly, I was anticipating a tribe swap this episode. When you get to 14, I feel like that's really likely. They were talking in the pregame recap, or specifically when GENKI was doing the recap in the first 30 seconds of the episode, where they were mentioning the half idol. So I thought the half idol was going to come into play a lot this episode, which it did because Kevin and Margaret had that conversation later in the episode, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But going into the episode, the way I saw it was it looked like a tribe swap was happening. There's like a group of 4 from the original Wahoo. There was a group of 3 also from that original Wahoo, and then a group of 6 from the Chamonix tribe. And I saw the swap going in definitely a bunch of different directions, and it definitely did. But I knew it was a very divided game just by looking at the outline of it, and I think the game blew wide open with the swap.
It feels like it's anybody's possible game, especially after this. I think after the tribal council as well.
Oh.
So, Katie, you kind of talk a little bit about Hannah in this episode, right at the start, kind of being nervous, and Hannah's kind of showing us like she's going in all different directions. She's a firework. She's just going off. Do you want to give us kind of some of your memories of that?
I'm gonna just preface this with I haven't actually seen the season. I don't really like watching myself on video.
Okay.
So everything that I'm going to say is purely from memory, and I may be talking about something that maybe is not related to what you're talking about. And if that's the case, just correct me. But yeah, I remember being like pretty, I don't know, iffy about Hannah, mainly because of Tommy. Tommy was not, like he was my closest ally member, and he was very sketched out by her. Just thinking she was a bit shifty. And so I think if that was, like if I was, worried about her, it was because he was worried about her. And I was just trying to keep my eyes open.
At times, it seems like Hannah is chaotic just to be chaotic instead of maybe chaotic to be strategic.
I think maybe like she's a very bubbly personality. And I think maybe it was just like that coming through instead of, like just chaotic. Like I think she wanted to go out there and play the game to play the game, like have fun with it. Because like, you're probably, play once, twice, maybe max, and she wanted to have a good time. And so it was definitely a lot of fun to play with her because she kept things interesting.
She had an apple.
Yeah,
She had an apple.
You did have an apple.
She's so funny.
I do have a fun fact about Hannah that might help with understanding her. She didn't go into this game as a Survivor fan. She went into this game as a Challenge fan, a fan of the show Challenge. So in my cast assessment of her, I said she's almost the full package, that she is sociable and likable and bubbly. And she is also athletic because she did field hockey in high school, but she didn't know anything about the game. So I didn't know whether her strategic moves would be correct, but she went into the game wanting to play and wanting to make moves. And that's what I love about Hannah. Regardless of whether her moves help her or not, or are in her self-interest, she plays hard.
And makes it interesting, just like Katie's kind of referring to. That's true. That's a fun player to play with, even though you can't necessarily put them in a box.
Or trust them, really. I mean, like, but it makes it a little bit difficult, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
I also feel like she turned herself in this episode into like, or maybe last episode too, into like a villain that you want to root for. Like she's obviously playing the game so hard and she's doing all these iconic things, but she's also being a villain at the same time. And then going into this episode, obviously we see at the end of the vote, she wasn't in the loop at all. And now I wonder how, like, especially Kevin as well, how Hannah and Kevin are going to look being like the villains almost in terms of the edit, and now how they're like a bit more underdogs, and how they're really going to deal with that situation. I think it's going to be crazy seeing Hannah play like that because she's playing with a lot of like fun, chaotic energy right now. But now that she actually sees that her game might be on the line, I wonder how that's going to translate into this next episode that we're going to see tonight. And I think that she's going to have to play a totally different way if she wants to get out of this situation that she's in, because it seems like she's in a gross minority after this last episode that happened, especially with the way Tribal went, obviously. Absolutely.
Naomi has a great question in the comments. I think we can save that for the end of the podcast. So Super Mario is still strong. Early in the episode, we see them talking. Lil Ryan is now new Big Ryan. I said last time, like, he can lose all of his adjectives. No, it's official. He is new Big Ryan. And we find out Margaret is a really big asset to these two. They really talk about how she's going to bring them information from the other girls, from this perceived girls alliance, and bring that in. And I think that's a really wise choice to keep bringing Margaret in closer to those two guys. We also see Hannah with Tommy, and we see some of that connection as well, which is really interesting to watch. I think in this episode, we see lots of different dynamics within the surviving six, and that is super intriguing. I don't know if anybody wants to have a take on that.
Well, from my perspective, it seems like there were almost like 3 duos within the 6. And obviously there were a lot more other interminglings, but it seemed like it was Lauren and Ethan, Hannah and Kevin, Katie and Tommy. And from what we saw in the episode, a little after the tribe swap as well, it seemed like Mario was trying to group in Hannah, Kevin, and Lauren into a little alliance with the 3 of them who are the Mario Bros, which I guess we could talk about that later as well, or we could talk about it now. But it seems like that there's like a lot of intermingling going on there, but it really seems like it's like 3 hardcore duos that are very together in this group of 6. And yeah, I would say that Tommy's in a very precarious position now too, losing his partner, obviously.
So who is Kevin closest to?
Hannah.
I would say he's close to Hannah, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because Kevin's another one that he has lots of tentacles in the game. It seems like different relationships.
I feel like one of his under the radar relationships too is Ryan, because he even said like Ryan would be like his roommate next year. Like I caught that in the episode. So I figure like when you hear someone say something like that, it means they have like a close personal bond, even if they're not showing it on camera as much. So I feel like even though Kevin, like going into this next episode, looks like he might be in a not so great position, if he has Ryan, then maybe his position could be leveraged a little bit, but also Kevin's not looking too great at this point in time.
Are there any more takes before we get to the swap? Because this is where it gets really interesting, and I'm ready to get right to it. Is there anything else, Johnny, that we should add in?
I was holding back a little bit. I mean, the only thing I wrote down was like Ryan Margaret showmance at the top of the episode. Like there was like a quick little scene where they like went out together. I don't really know if that's like a big deal. Maybe if you guys were alluding to something in the future, but that was the only pre-swap note I had. And then literally all the rest of my notes are just based on the swap. So
yeah. So I was going to come in because I watch a lot of these LRGs. I watch a lot of college LRGs, and I really thought I was going to talk about the broken mechanic of the swap and how. So the game I host, Adventure Coco Pele, is always a one world game. And we've seen over the years that sometimes that encourages big alliances which dominate and then dissolve and break up into the other groups and just purposefully throw challenges, which makes your challenges pointless. You might as well just go to tribal council. Like, why did I buy all this stuff for you to not play the game? So I was coming in thinking of that, and that's not how this episode plays out at all. It seems like it goes in that direction, and then the script totally gets flipped, which we'll get into. But we're at the swap, and it breaks down, and it's crazy because, am I correct? 2 people from each original tribe stay on their tribe, and everybody else flops over.
Yeah.
How like, can you imagine? Like, that's your tribe, and suddenly you're outnumbered. It's like, oh. So we have Lauren and Kevin from old Chominiques on the new Chominiques, and then we also had Ellie and Margaret were the only on Waim. Oh, my lighting is very bright suddenly. Okay. So that's interesting. Genki, when you saw that play out as the host, what were you thinking?
When I saw that play out, I was so upset. I at least wanted a 3-4 swap. Of course, I wouldn't have been able to control that to at least have a potential of one person flipping over. But when I saw 5-2 on both sides, I was like, oh man, it's either definitely Lauren or Kevin, or definitely Margaret or Ellie. And I really like all 4 of those people. Granted, I like the whole cast at this point, but it would be devastating to lose someone because their swap screwed. So I was upset.
I was fine at that moment in time. I was like, okay, I'm in the majority. It's fine. Little did I know. But it was fun to look around at like that tennis court and like, point out, who else was on my tribe. It was cool. It was, the best situation, I think, to be in at that situation.
So after they get their buffs, we heard a little bit about this. Both Tommy and Peyton have an itchy feeling when they put on their buff, and there is a crumpled piece of paper in there. So survivors in the future, if you're ever putting your buff on and you feel something strange in there, just zip your lips and wait till your confessional, because I don't know. In the edit, it looks like nobody saw the clues to me, but I can't be sure. Genki, do you want to fill us in on that?
Yeah, when I think Peyton's clue almost fell out, like it was sort of coming out of her buff, but nobody saw it, thankfully for them. And so Tommy and Peyton were both able to search for their idols alone, without anyone knowing. It's only until what happened in Runk, the dining hall, where Mario sees Peyton and overhears her conversation, that something leaks.
Oh my gosh. So this idol hunt is amazing. And this is a mechanic I really want to talk about, because I really think hosts should borrow this idea. So there is one singular idol and a player from each tribe looking for that same idol. This is what happened to me in Survivor BC. I think it makes for really dynamic episodes. So whether or not they're actually doing this at the same time, we perceive it that way, and it's super exciting. Tommy's looking everywhere for it. He's going to be super powered Tommy. If he finds this idol, like, let's just guarantee him a spot in the finals. And then Peyton's looking for it too. In her quirky Peyton goofy way, she's finding dead birds all over the place. Like I'm like, is this an Alfred Hitchcock movie? Like, what's happening here? And Peyton's just so cute and quirky. And then she goes to the most like iconic root system and she just pulls it out, and there she goes. But then, Genki, do you want to get into a little bit of what actually happened in the dining hall, how it all went down?
Yeah, so I think Ryan edited this very well, and what happened was Mario, Ryan, and Margaret were eating together in a dining hall and probably strategizing together, and Peyton was also in that same dining hall. But the thing is, that dining hall is only for first years, so they were surprised to see her. Margaret kind of hides herself. Ryan decides to also split up, but Peyton sees Mario. So they end up talking together, but lo and behold, Peyton is with her friend Sarah, and Peyton has probably told Sarah about her idol. Everybody in Survivor UVA has like one friend to talk about Survivor with and rant about. But Sarah, she says to Peyton, did you tell him about the idol? And what can Peyton do at that point? You know, I'm sure she panicked, but Mario caught on. He heard it. So now at this point, Mario knows that Peyton has an idol. So he tells Margaret and Ryan, and who knows who they're going to tell.
Well, you can pretty much figure everybody knows. Like, I always feel like if one person knows, probably a lot of people know. But how crazy. Like, guys, this is College Survivor. Your good friend in the dining hall might tank your game.
I felt for her in that moment too, because it seems like, especially for Peyton, that she was really getting some traction with something in the game, and she got the idol. She had power in her hands. Like, information is power, especially in Survivor. And Peyton, being in one of those little smaller groups of the factions I was talking about earlier, found the idol, gets that power, and then her friend just absolutely blows it for her. And it's not over for Peyton yet, but especially hearing what Mario had to say after he found out about that, and now multiple people know about Peyton's idol too, before Peyton even has the chance to tell her own allies, it doesn't look, it's not the best. It's not the best.
Oh, Ryan. Well,
I did not know this, but that's smart.
I feel like if I played one of these games, I literally could not trust a soul, including the people outside the game. I wouldn't tell anybody anything. Even I have to imagine these guys take their friends to go film with them when they go on like idol hunts too and stuff like that. I don't even know if I'd trust people doing that. I feel like I'd just go by myself, hold the camera like this, like, yo, here we go.
Oh. That's a great idea.
I feel like I'd be stressed out to tell that many people, but hopefully it doesn't bite her. I feel like it might, but
College Survivors, write that in your notes. So another thing,
or get a production member.
Oh, yes. So did you guys, that's a good question, Genki. Did you guys use production members for the filming when they're out on their own?
When they're out on their own, they usually film themselves. But for Idol Hunt specifically, everyone in the cast is assigned to a specific production member. We had 9, and each of them had 2 cast members. So the person who was assigned to Peyton was the one filming her searching for the idol. So fortunately, that wasn't a friend.
So were Tommy and Peyton actually searching at the same time?
I actually don't know because the footage was turned in at different times.
Okay.
But I imagine they could have been because they were searching in different locations.
It's just when I saw Peyton in the rain with the umbrella, I was like, girl, I hope you get it. You're working hard. You deserve it.
Yeah.
We kind of skipped over the challenge. So let's get into that.
It was fun.
The tribes were predicting everything. They kind of felt a swap coming on, and they kind of felt like it was sumo wrestling, and they were right. So, Genki, why don't you take us through a little bit of the challenge?
Yeah, so we had the swap, and then at the challenge, we're having one girl from Wahoo and one guy from Chomanik sit out. They decide the strongest guy to weakest guy, and then strongest girl to weakest girl to choose the matchups. So the first matchup we come up with is Ethan and Ryan, and then they clash. I expected, when I saw this in real time, I was expecting Ryan to win, and Ryan won. So I was like, okay, no surprise there. And then the second matchup, I'm not remembering. Hannah and Peyton, I believe. That was definitely one matchup. And I thought it could have gone either way. At this point, I didn't know that they were actually going to throw the challenge. So I thought this was a real challenge. Everybody was trying their hardest. Peyton and Hannah went up against each other, and I was assuming that Hannah was going to win, but Peyton won. So that surprised me. And then Tommy versus Mario won. That didn't surprise me as much. And then, but for Wahoo to gain Chomanik to win every single point completely shocked me. And then when I heard that they threw the challenge, I was like, oh, that makes sense. But I was disappointed because that's lame.
Yeah, survivors, that is lame. The problem is it strategically makes sense when you're in the game. It absolutely, it's like everything makes sense. But for us out here, think of us.
Yeah.
We want to watch you play. But that's how it breaks down. So we could get into some of these notes we have, Johnny, of after the fact, because this is where everything happens.
Yeah.
I'll just give a couple right away. Or let's talk a little bit about Tommy and Katie. I found it interesting that you guys, I love your relationship. I loved how you two work together. But in this episode, it's interesting because you're both kind of keeping things from each other. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, Katie?
I don't remember what I was keeping from him. However, after the fact, at the end of the episode, I figured out that, he had the idol, which blew my socks off. And I don't know if I'm going to be like jumping ahead like too much, but like, I don't know, at the, like, at the tribal ceremony, like, I remember like trying to like, make eye contact with him and be like, look, bud, like this is happening. And having no clue that he had it. And I feel like that could have changed the, course of the game, because he told me he would have played it for me. If he, actually did or, would, who knows, but like, he said he would. And I feel like that could have, switched things up a bit. For sure.
Credit to Katie here. Katie knows how to read situations. Even in the beginning of the season, Katie knew what position she was in the surviving 6. And that she was on the bottom and that she was a swing vote in Chomanik in the first week. And here she knew that she was going to get voted out. I don't know how. You were probably reading vibes, Katie.
That and that whole week, I mean, I guess I did the challenge, but like other than that, I didn't really pay attention to the game, just because, you know, you're also, you're living life. You're not like off in an island. Like, you know, I was going through some shit that week and I didn't have the opportunity to like actually pay attention to it. So like, the day of tribal rolls around, I'm like, holy crap, we haven't decided like who we're gonna vote out. And so I'm like, okay, that's a clue, because of course they have. I'm just not a part of it. So it was like a last minute scramble to try and like figure things out. That was kind of more than like just reading, you know, situations, I suppose. But thank you, Genki. That's nice.
It did come down to that day of, though, right? Because the whole Mario thing, which now I guess I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but the whole Mario thing from Max and Ethan's perspective happened like an hour before Tribal. So it almost seems like that day, like there really wasn't anything set in stone. But it was one of those crazy situations where like you could literally never predict what happened to actually happen.
I mean, we were like texting beforehand. Like I was like begging them to like give me a name, and like just minutes beforehand. And they, you know, I don't remember. Eventually, you know, somebody like ended up doing it, but it was, you know, not very, you know, not a resounding answer. So, it was fishy. And then, you know, Tribal was awful, like pretty weird too. Like you could just sense that the vibes were off.
I agree. Tribal was awful. I agree.
Yeah.
So it's from the outside perspective, and Genki mentions this at Tribal Council, that it seems most likely that either Ellie or Margaret are going to be the targets. Margaret does a lot of work this episode. Johnny, do you want to have any takes on what Margaret was doing once she kind of realized her position?
Yeah, Margaret put in a ton of hustle this week. And something I love when I watch LRGs is I feel like the people, and this is obviously not always like linear, but the people who are getting the big edits are the people who are typically putting in a lot of the work, especially to make sure that they're in the game, especially to make sure that they have good relationships. So Margaret was filming all of her conversations, and she was making rounds to everyone on the tribe any way she could. And ultimately, the one that I remember the most is Max was even like, yeah, straight up, you're just probably not going to have support with these numbers. So it's either going to be you or Ellie, and my group will figure out who it is. And from there, she still kept trying, and even she threatened Kevin at one point, which was a big moment, I feel like, and that was a big reason why Hannah wanted to make the vote be Margaret instead of Ellie, because for a while, I thought they were going to make the vote Ellie and not Margaret, especially because they were having a lot of talk at Tribal about splitting up Katie and Ellie, and the whole Katie and Ellie thing got blown up, even though Katie was being so transparent with her alliance. I couldn't have sided with Katie more in that situation, where she very transparently told them that she was going to talk to Ellie to have that relationship, and then they held it against her, which I found to be insane. But I thought Ellie was going to get the vote. Even though Margaret was putting in a lot of the effort, I feel like the edit was trying to build Margaret up to be someone that we were rooting for. And we definitely are rooting for her. I'm a full Margaret stan, number one right here. But I think Margaret put in just a ton of work. I don't know if how much of her work really was, and Genki and Katie can maybe attest to this, how much of her work actually contributed to what happened at the end of the episode. Because I'm sure that helped people want to vote with her, considering that she had talked to them in the past. But it did seem like it was a lot of Mario that really made that happen.
Yeah, when it comes to who gets credit for why Katie went, we're going to see exactly what happened in the beginning of the next episode. So we're going to see what minutia and who talked to who and what those conversations were that Mario was having that led to Katie being voted out. But I definitely agree that Margaret put in the most work here, at least within the Wahoo tribe, to try to stay. And that might have been counterintuitive because people might have seen Margaret as a harder player than Ellie at that point.
That's kind of what I thought was happening too, honestly.
Yeah.
The more conversations she was having, the more people were talking about her. Ellie wasn't even shown in that whole segment for the most part, which is why I thought she was going to go, honestly. But I agree. I think it was a little counterintuitive at the same time.
Yeah. I got to give credit to Ryan here because his edit is really reflective of the truth and what actually happened. And the people who are getting more airtime are more the people who are putting in the effort and filming themselves, and it's reflective of who is putting in more work.
And this is Ryan's first time editing, right?
He had a little bit of film experience in high school, but yes, this is his first time editing something like this, and I couldn't be more proud.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is.
So I was really intrigued with Margaret talking to Kevin because, again, they both have the half idol. They're talking about that. And Kevin starts saying how she's just demanding. She's ordering me to do things. And, I saw it as both an opportunity, a missed opportunity, and an opportunity maybe you shouldn't take. Like, they could have used the idol. They could have just gotten rid of it. It's no longer a thing because obviously they both know about it. They could tell other people. So in some ways that half idol could be a target later on. Just get rid of it. But clearly he wants to stay with the 6 as he makes it clear that he thinks he can beat every single one of the surviving 6. Mind you, we're at the final 14.
I think he said everyone in the game, actually, Kirk. I think he said literally everyone in the game. He's like, I don't care who I'm up against. I'll beat them all.
What? It's the final 14, dude. Like that's some bravado.
A lot of confidence for sure.
Yeah. Pretty
And I would even say, like, with a half idol situation, if you want a situation like that to work, you have to have some sort of working relationship with the other person who has a half idol. You can't just go up to them and be like, hey, I'll give you an idol clue and you give me the half idol. Like, obviously she's going to be able to read that transparently. Like, obviously she's going to be able to see, like, okay, this isn't going to help me at all. Like, you need to have a working relationship with the other person, where I feel like the thing that both of them did that I wasn't that big of a fan of is the fact that they didn't even get to each other sooner. Because I feel like if they try to team up earlier in the season, they could use that half idol really effectively. On day 1, they had so much power in the game, and both of them seemed to have neglected each other a little bit. Obviously, I'm sure they had a little small talk here and there, but when Kevin came up to Margaret with this conversation, it doesn't seem like it was going to go anywhere, no matter what combination of words they chose to use during that conversation.
Yeah, by week 5, their self-interest just didn't align at all. So there really was no reason for either of them to work with one another other than the fact that they can make an idol together. So the tension was palpable.
Oh, I bet. And that's such a potential big move. There's it's one of your opportunities to make a big move. But then again, you have to risk giving up something to make. Oh, what a tough situation.
Yeah.
I liked Mario. See, it seems like Super Mario Bros. Were just like really trying to work Kevin, because I was shook when Mario said to Kevin, we can't do that. It puts your numbers above mine. Like, Mario, like, that, talk about more bravado. Like, that's one of the bravest things I've ever heard a survivor say in the game of Survivor. I was really surprised.
Well, Mario's got all the vibrato in the world, if we want to talk about vibrato. But I agree. I really think that the way Mario was going about that is like when you put someone in their place like that, especially that early in the game, and you're like, hey, I'm not doing that because it doesn't benefit both of us. It's just transparently benefiting you. And I think the way that Mario was able to call that out and then in turn do what he actually ended up doing later in the episode is really just like the jab that he really gave to Kevin and all of his allies there. Because Mario really took the realm there. Yeah. And also, one thing I say so much when I play these games is just like, the more honesty you can bring to the table, the better. Because if you have to keep track of all your lies, it's so hard. So if Mario's being transparent about his intention with the response, I'm losing the word, but like the way that Mario responded to that, like if you respond that transparently to someone, then they're going to think that you really are being that honest with them consistently in the future. So when Mario's like, that puts your numbers above mine, I'm not going to do that, Mario can then use that situation and leverage that situation in the future, because Kevin will think he's being more and more honest with him over time. Because the way that Mario responded is not the way that Kevin wants to hear it, but Kevin's like, oh, he's actually being genuine with me, which is a really smart move for Mario and Kevin's relationship, which I'm sure is probably going to come into play. They're 2 huge power players on the same tribe right now. So,
absolutely. And we keep seeing Super Mario, I think, trying to save Margaret, trying to keep her in the game. Ryan admits the fake legacy advantage to Mario. I can't remember. Do they actually give it to Margaret? Does she have it, or did they wash that idea?
They don't ever give it to Margaret this week. Okay. I suppose that was just a red herring for this week.
Yeah,
possibly save Margaret.
Absolutely, it's an option, and it seems like whatever option they created with the blind side of Katie was a better choice. And I'm still surprised. So, okay, I guess we can get into it. We've covered a lot of the points. We can cover some others, but who exactly voted against Katie?
Ethan flipped.
Yeah.
And so did Max.
Yeah.
was-
Yeah. But
yeah.
yeah,
But Ethan was the one in the 6. So
I
I think
didn't care that much about Max. We didn't really. So yeah.
that's fair. So I think it was
Um,
Ethan, Max, Ellie, and Margaret who were the 4 that voted out Katie.
And then Tommy, Hannah, and Katie were at the outs.
Interesting. So Ellie was completely telling the truth in that very pointed question about the potential relationship between the two of you. And that might be why it was kind of sprinkled throughout the episode. I thought she was lying when she was saying that. And clearly she was just telling the truth. Ellie seems to be pretty upfront about things like I'm game loyalties aside from friendship loyalties. Like, we're going to play a game.
Yeah, so far Ellie has been one to tell truth and be loyal to her allies, and we'll see whether that changes or not. I totally forgot what I was going to say.
That's always my go-to, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. And yeah, we'll see. Or I say, and then just hope someone else jumps in. Katie, did you feel like you're, like, on a scale from 1 to 10, maybe, like, your relationship with Ellie, like, how important was it compared to, like, the way, or I guess you didn't watch the episode, but, like, the episode made it seem like a pretty big deal. So, like, was it as big of a deal in your head, or was it more like the surviving 6, Ellie's, like, a side piece that I have?
It was probably more like the second. Like, our friendship, like, I mean, we're like friends, but like, I guess like what we talked about at Tribal, like, we're friends, but not like, you know, close or anything. Like, I knew her because she was the like roommate of my friend, and you know, so like, you know, we were friends but not that close, and I think people just blew it up, like very like wisely blew it up, just to like put a target on me, or give them like an excuse, you know, like, okay, we need somebody, like, let's just say this is the reason, because I don't really, I mean, I guess I wasn't like talking to as much or as many people as I probably should have been, and I think that might have been like an issue for me going home. I'm not entirely positive like why it was me in the end, because I don't think my game was particularly like threatening. But
I don't think it was even revealed yet, honestly. I think it really, I'm sure they're going to talk more about why they chose you, because literally in all capital letters, why did they do Katie over Hannah?
Yeah.
Yes. I do have a couple of theories. I don't know if they'd be true, but I mean, Hannah does say at the start of the episode that Hannah is concerned about how quiet you are.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, interesting. Like so meek as a mouse, might be able to squirrel your way further in the game, maybe.
She thought it was like a strategy, not just like a personality. I like just don't talk much, but I think maybe she was being more chaotic, and so she thought I was being less chaotic, you know, like for a strategy. But no, that's not it.
Yeah, and it can't be the reason, because she's part of the surviving 6. It would be counterintuitive for her to make that choice, and it seems like, although she's chaotic, we've come to terms with it's not just chaos for chaos. She is trying to have fun and play a real game. So I don't know. I mean, I'll be shook. I mean, we get this information. Max says he got a bunch of text messages from Mario prior to Tribal Council. Max is one of the people who flipped. There's got to be something in there. I think that's one of our clues to try and piece together like how this information.
Well, I would say my prediction, because these two obviously know what happened, but my prediction is Mario, from what we've seen in the edit, has a very strong friendship with Lauren outside the game, before the game even started. Lauren's duo partner was Ethan. So I assume that Lauren probably told Mario about the surviving 6, which Lauren kind of explained a little bit in the episode. At one point, she was like, oh, I might have said it to Mario at some point. I'm not really sure. I'm sure she mentioned it. And then Mario finds out about the surviving 6, uses that information to tell Max, tells Lauren to grab Ethan, and that's how potentially Ethan and Max end up flipping in favor. That's the way that I saw that situation going down when I was watching it in the edit. I don't know how else, Mario could have had that leverage to just call Ethan and Max out of the blue. I feel like Lauren played a huge role in that they're probably waiting to show us until this episode tonight. But I feel like that's how it went down.
Lauren looks so guilty. I just remembered the look on her face when Kevin like says, they know there's a 6. And like her face, she just shrinks for a second. And I'm like, oh, she told somebody something. And I think she even says, like I might have let something slip. Like, ooh, loose lips sink ships, baby. Uh-oh. But maybe not, because maybe she wanted Ethan to vote that. I'm so confused. Literally,
I have to imagine Mario and Lauren's relationship, because the way I have it pinned down, and we were talking MVP of the episode, we were talking who made this happen. I feel like Mario did 95% of this. Which obviously there was a lot of groundwork put in before the episode happened, but the way I looked at it, and I broke it down earlier, but like there were like 3 factions in the game. It was the half of Wahoo that was Mario, Margaret, Ryan, and Andy. Then it was like the other part of Wahoo that was like Aaron, Ellie, and Peyton, even though I don't know how cohesive they were. Then there's the surviving 6. Then there's Max. And it seems like, if my theory is correct, Mario took Lauren and Ethan, pulled him away from the surviving 6, took Max, who was an island on himself, pulled him closer to himself. And then on top of that, he has Ryan, Andy, and Margaret still with him. And he basically has the 7 people that I just named. So like Mario, Andy, Ryan, Margaret. And then he pulls in Lauren, Ethan, and Max to be like on his side. And then also he has Aaron, Ellie, and Peyton from his original tribe. The game right now literally seems like it's 10 versus 3 with Hannah, Kevin, and Tommy on the bottom. That's how I'm working out the game dynamics right now, the way that I'm seeing it. But it seems like Mario swung a 6 versus 7 versus 1 and turned it into a 10 versus 3 situation, where he basically dragged the game in his favor.
And that's insane.
If I'm right, but it is insane. That, in my opinion, might be one of the biggest swings I've ever seen in a season of College Survivor ever. Because normally there aren't swings that big. Normally people stick with their people. Honestly, they're living their normal life. They have class. They have their other friends who are not Survivor people. They're not thinking about the game that much, and they're not trying to go against their allies maybe necessarily, because that's their ticket to getting deeper in the game. So seeing swings like this early in the game based off of what seems like loose relationships is really interesting, because Tommy has an idol. And now Kevin also knows about this half idol. So now that these 3, who are huge scrappers, Hannah, Kevin, and Tommy, in the bottom of the game, it seems, no matter which tribe loses tonight's challenge, I have to imagine it's going to be a ridiculously interesting episode, because if Hannah and Tommy go to tribal, I don't feel like it's a 4v2 situation the way that we think it's going to be. Ethan and Max are kind of comfortably sitting in the middle, where Margaret is probably going to have to put in a lot of work, and Ellie probably won't be as proactive, but there's going to be a lot of proactive people at that tribal, where the other tribal is probably going to be Tommy versus the other 6. Because if my theory is correct, which I feel like it is, then it's Lauren, who is comfortably in with Mario, and then Kevin, who's like on an island on his own. So I feel like no matter what tribe goes to tribal this episode, the dynamic is going to be insane. And I feel like because Mario made this move.
And we've only seen chill Tommy. We haven't seen Tommy like with his feathers ruffled at all. So I'm excited to see that side. Like if he has to light a fire under his ass and just like start working, I mean, he's got an idol in his pocket. He can do a lot of damage being one person. Like there's still possibilities.
He's wild. I mean, they had that alliance of 5 to start. Tommy wasn't in it. Tommy managed to get his way into that alliance, turned into the surviving 6. Then they lose a number of that alliance. Tommy's now on an island on his own. And like I said, I wrote this down, but like, I'm curious to see how he plays from the bottom, because I'm listening to his confessionals. He has a knack for the game. Like, you guys could, GENKI or Katie can confirm this, but I assume he's a big fan of the show. And I feel like he knows what to do in these situations, but I don't know if he knows how to play from the bottom this early in the game. And you could already see in the preview for next week, he's like, well, the game's over, blah, 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 like throwing his hands up in the air to try, what just happened? Like, it seems like he's not going to be able to filter his emotions, which is going to make for so much excitement, because you want characters that don't filter their emotions, because they make for exciting TV. And Tommy is going to, I think, going to be one of the standout characters of the next few episodes, whether he quickly burns away or actually can make it to the merge. But I feel like he's so smart of a player with the knack of the game that he has, that I feel like he can really use the idol to get himself out of this swap situation. It's just going to take a lot of work, I feel like.
Speaking on production's thoughts on Tommy, we picked winner picks before the first day of the game. There were 9 of us. I think 7 of us had winner picks, and 3 people picked Tommy. So that just goes to show how much faith we had in Tommy and his ability to play the game. Another fun fact is that Margaret also got 2 picks for winner pick, including myself. So we also have a lot of faith in Margaret at that point to do well.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to say my MVP of the episode, while Mario, I totally agree with you, Johnny. And if everything plays out like you say, like you're predicting right now, I will probably change my vote. But I'm going to say it's Margaret. I still think, even though she probably had a ton of help, there is something to be said about having so much help. Those are the relationships she's built and worked with, and to have so many people going up to bat for you, willing to make moves, willing to be. I felt like she's very meek when she's around Ryan and Mario, and she just accepts information and gives them what they need. And then when it's like with Kevin, she's really direct, punchy. And I like seeing both sides, because I think sometimes when you're aloof and perceived as a different personality in Survivor, sometimes that can maybe help you because stories don't align about you, and it's like who is this person? So I still have some faith in Margaret, even though she took votes. She survived, and I think she's in it for the long haul still. I'll put money on it. So we'll see.
And honestly, if it's not Mario, I mean, Margaret has to have, like you said, that level of social game to be able to have someone like Mario stick his neck out so wide to save someone like Margaret. Like, that's total props to Margaret. Like, if anyone ever tries to go to bat to save you, you've done something to convince that person that you're worth saving. And that's huge in the game of Survivor. You just have to convince everyone that you're worth saving 100% of the time, and you can make it to the end. That's the whole name of the game. So the way that Margaret was able to do that is huge. And also the amount of effort we saw, obviously. Like, Margaret just seems like she's playing so hard, and she's so much fun to have around. And I also love the fact that we get this half-idol dynamic a little farther. It seems like this is the first time it was brought up, and now Margaret might not be in as precarious of a position, but Kevin is. So now the half-idol conversation might come up again, no matter which side goes to tribal. And I feel like Margaret is now maybe in more of a position of power to leverage that half-idol than Kevin is, whereas Kevin probably had a little bit more power in this last episode than Margaret did.
Johnny, what is Andy going to do? What is Andy's long-range plan?
You want to know what? I have a lot of faith in Andy as an individual now that I saw he created the fake idol, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to make sure I had that right. The fact that Andy really went out of his way to create a fake idol, again, he seems like he's a bit of a fan of the show. Just like listening to confessionals and you listen to the dialect they have when they talk about the game, it seems like Andy kind of knows what's going on, but it seems like he's playing like a little bit of an under-the-radar game, which is good for Andy. I feel like there's almost no way Andy goes out pre-jury at this point, or pre-merge, whatever it may be. His long-term plan, it seems like he's really stuck in with Ryan A. And it seems like that a lot of his game is being branched off of what Ryan is doing. I'm sure that'll break out at some point, especially if he's a fan of the show. He has to be aware that he can't just have one ally, but the edit is showing us that he really does just have Ryan as an ally right now. And Andy seemed to be like the biggest non-factor in that original Wahoo tribe out of anybody. That was just my perspective, though. I can tell he's a smart player. I'm just waiting for what he's going to do next. But the fake idol thing really gave me a lot of hope for him and like his game.
Because we saw the Super Mario Bros. Try to like scoop him up, but I keep thinking, and he's clearly got new Big Ryan, but I'm wondering if like he's gonna need more options. I feel like he is.
I mean, there's some people, and you can't have 20 people or 18 people every time playing super individualistic games, especially in a college Survivor game. I mean, more often than not in all these college Survivor seasons I watch, there's 1 to 2 people who make it to the merge who barely get any confessionals, barely get any edit. And I don't even think Andy's that person in this game. But I do believe that Andy is probably going to stick by Ryan for as long as Ryan is in the game. Because I have to imagine Andy is not the person who is going to go home quick when this war starts to happen. I don't think he's the type of person to get in the crossfires unless people are trying to vote for the person who's least likely to have the idol or something like that. But I think he has longevity in the game. I'm just curious to see what he does with it because I think he has a knack for the game. And I've said this about a lot of the people in this season, which is why I'm so attracted to this season so much. I'm just curious what he does with or without Ryan once he gets to the merge. Because I think a lot of his game is surrounded by Ryan right now.
Interesting. And another one is Peyton. I keep thinking, like, you know, Peyton's got her post-swap idol now, but she's so goofy and quirky. I wonder if she's going to have the strategic mindset to make that move with that idol that I think she's going to have to make in order to get to the end of the game, which I would love. I love Peyton's personality. I just think she shines on camera, but I wonder if she's got the strategic chops to make it there, or if her best bet is to look like she doesn't have a clue and hope people just don't pin her as a target.
I see there's always the people who also rise a lot when the merge starts, and I really think Peyton could be one of those people if she gets there. I was really worried for Peyton when Mario and the Mario Bros were talking about Peyton having the idol and how they could just easily blindside her. And especially now that Katie's out of the game, maybe they're not as worried about the surviving 6 anymore. Maybe they're not as worried about Kevin. Maybe they take a move to try to get out Peyton at their first tribal council as a tribe because they know Peyton has the idol, and because they probably, like the same read that you have, Kirk, is that she seems very aloof right now. And she obviously has a very bubbly personality, but I'm sure she's not having the utmost game conversations with the people who are in the core of that tribe. She probably thinks like, oh, I'm up 5-2. This is great. But now that Mario knows she has the idol, she has to put in work to make sure that that doesn't become a disadvantage for her. And I'm not sure if she knows that Mario knowing about the idol actually is a disadvantage. I don't know if she knows that yet. And if she does, she's got to start working on it fast.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love the whole story about how she comes into the first year's, residence hall to go eat some food because she's friends with the RA. And then isn't it Ryan says he has to like duck and cover to get out of there?
Yeah.
I wish we could have seen that. I mean, that just sounds amazing to watch. But they pulled it off. The surviving 6 is now the dissolving 6, or the final, there's 5 now.
They have like four loyal members at this point, maybe 3, depending on what Lauren's intentions were going into that. So it's a crumbling alliance for sure. And honestly, I feel like as a viewer, you're not rooting for an alliance of 6 to dominate the game. So this was probably like the best thing that could have happened for a viewer perspective and for what we're rooting for as fans. Even though I have to say it was probably the one person from the surviving 6 I did not want to see go home. Which it is what it is. But now we have to see these other people fight it out, which is crazy because I thought Katie was about to have that absolute legendary merge come out where she's like, okay, I got Ellie here, I got Tommy here, and I know Tommy has an idol and this, and this, but we didn't get to see it, obviously. But yeah.
After the 4th tribal that Sarah went out in, I picked Katie as my winner pick from that point. And then the next tribal, Katie goes. But I really thought that Katie had a good sense of the game. And I do think that she was simply outplayed by other people who had different intentions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was playing as hard as I probably could have been. So, I mean, I don't know if I would have won, like, even if I had, made it to the end. Maybe past the merge, but, like, it makes sense.
The edit, honestly, which I know you're not watching the episodes, the edit honestly paints a really good picture for you, where I think the audience was very surprised when you got voted out. And I was watching the comments because I know there was a very precarious episode in Survivor Maryland this week as well, where the comments were just going off. They were like, this is the type of person that always goes out. It's the person we're rooting for, and they go out at the top, and it sucks. And I agreed with them because I feel like that's exactly what happened here. And now, like, the audience as a group, we're almost pivoting to, like, rooting for different people with the way that this episode just panned out, which that's how it always goes. We're always just rooting for different people depending on how the episode goes.
It's disastrous that we lost you, Katie, because your relationship with Tommy and Ellie was super interesting. There's so much that you set yourself up perfectly at the start of the game. Everything was going well, and then this is like the opposite of swap fucked, or it's a new thing to me. So I feel for you, but it's going to make for exciting TV. We now have the thriving 3, if there is 3 left from the surviving 6. Mario Bros is still in power. Intact, and who knows what is going to happen. The next episode is going to drop when, Genki?
Yeah, that's right.
Is it dropping tonight at 9?
At 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
Wait,
okay.
9 p.m. 9 p.m.
All right, 9 p.m.
Amazing Race.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So yes, and there's some LRG info about that too. Some people that are involved, which is really interesting. But anyways, we're gonna leave you at that, friends. It's been awesome meeting you, Katie, Johnny. It's been a blast. Please check it out. Go to their page, like it, follow them. Join us on Facebook, Live Reality Games, or on Instagram. You'll get updates there about what's happening weekly, the shows we're talking about. And if we're not talking about your LRG, why aren't we? Hit us up. We want to cover you. And also, if you like to talk about strategy, we'd like people on to guest star or host their own podcast. So please hit us up. We need people. There's a lot to talk about. It's crazy. You know, I see like all the other podcasts that focus on one show on YouTube, and it's like we're trying to cover 1,000. So we thank everybody who's been following us, sending us love, all of the stars of these shows coming on. And Johnny, you're fantastic. I hope you come back.
Oh, shucks. I will. Let me know when. I watch them all. So.
All right. So friends, thanks for joining us for another podcast. We'll see you soon.